and welcome to this edition of DeFacto Review, a weekly roundup of the biggest stories shaping Mongolia this week. Follow the conversation by tweeting us on Twitter with hashtag DeFacto. With us tonight is our host, Jargle DeFacto, and I'm Terrence Edwards. Coming up on the program. We begin our story with Internet Mine. Members of the Mongolian People's Party are shunning the sell-off of Russia's ownership of the Internet Mine that was sold last June. Now they're opening discussions on strategies how to reverse this decision to allow that sell-off. On 16 January, high-ranking party officials from the Mongolian People's Party discussed their plan and how they can reverse the sell-off to a little-known private company called Mongolian Copper. This company is known to have some ties to Trade and Development Bank of Mongolia. So, Jargle, just to begin with, is there much the Mongolian People's Party or the government itself can really do at this point? Is it a situation of too little, too late?
Well, it is in fact not the issue of reversing all this deal. It's a matter they have discussed was how to buy from the small private company that share to the government, by the government, which actually is not the main point that people are interested in general, because the people want to see what exactly happened, where the money came from for buying that. Some source says that the money can be used, this money is from Erdenet itself, and also some partially used from the bond money. So there was an inspection working group of the parliament on this issue about these transactions. Now they have prepared, I understand, already the report. And that report will be discussed next week at the People's Party caucus, and then they will discuss, I hope, openly at the parliament. So they are actually opening big issues. And some of them, if I can mention, is October 7 last year, Prime Minister Erdenbat visited Erdenet, and he had promised to people to, for example, to disclose the notes from the closed meeting of the government about Erdenet sales.
Because there's been a veil of mystery surrounding the whole deal since it occurred.
So that's why he made it available, that protocol, the minutes of that meeting, from which people understood that they had done secretly agreed, the government agreed to sell to the private Mongolian company to buy the shares from Russian shareholders, that time Rostec, which was having that share on behalf of the government. So at the end, the Mongolian government asked if the Russian government will send note that they are ready to sell. Then it's officially, they will say agree, and they got a note by Medvedev, signed by him, so that they are ready to sell. They will allow selling the shares by this Rostec to Mongolian company if the Mongolian government has no refusal.
Would this include the depositions given by high-ranking government officials at the time, including the former Prime Minister, Chimit Sakenbilik?
No, it is not the issue of, there was not any information about this sort of deposits. But the issue at this parliament, the government, that meeting discussed was about $400 million was the price for that 49%. And the interesting new information for me was, if they will sell to other than Trade and Development Bank and this Mongolian Copper, then the price will be $100 million more. And within 18 months, that will be the period of transaction. So they have done the transactions, but now the Mongolian public wants to know where exactly this money comes from. interesting thing was in October, also Prime Minister said that they will ask the Mongol Bank, who has the monitoring right for all commercial banks, to inspect what exactly happened with this true transactions from the development bank, how where the money come from, etc. And Mongol Bank has not yet reported about that because Mongol Bank is to be asked by the parliament, not by the government, to make any inspection and make a report back.
So it should be the elected lawmakers that are questioning them.
Who should questioning the Mongol Bank to give a fuller report, which have not done yet. So Mongol Bank is expected to give that report on actually what happened with the Trade and Development Bank transactions concerning that issues. So we are waiting for that, and next week, Mongolians now, I think ordinary Mongolians are waiting really for that inspection report by the parliamentarian group. But they cannot do themselves this inspection itself because they have no right for that to do so. So the country is expecting that a report, independent report from that group next week.
So it's a little bit strange for this backpedaling because the government has been pushing this privatization of state-owned assets. Realistically, in your opinion, are the Mongolian people better off with a state-owned mine that is run by businessmen, private interests, or should it be completely run by the state, which has had a track record of inefficiencies, loss-making, etc.?
In Mongolians, I think in general, public understands that it is much better to be in the private hand. In general, public is happy that now a Mongolian company bought their shares. But now concern was what was the procedure of the government to make that decisions. If there is any private individual interests from the decision makers in that transactions. That's what the mostly people want to know first. Secondly, of course, it's much better to have the mining, including originate in private hand than in the government hand. So the issue is now, should they buy back from this Mongolian company and make a IPO or not? Or should do it on two sides together? That's the next issue. But before, we want to know exactly what had happened. That's the public
even
demand.
though Mongolia's got some income from the sale, well, actually it went to Russia, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, but there is a strategy that perhaps a business could run it more efficiently. Perhaps the way it was done it wasn't terribly transparent, and maybe the best party didn't win it because we don't know.
Yes.
So much we don't know about this company.
So that's why that inspection report is about. So we are looking for that, and the public, I think, will make own conclusion afterwards.
What we do know, however, is that the company is run by a man that is on the legal team of Trade and Development Bank, and the bank also provided at least $200 million in financing for that purchase.
Yeah, that's why the Mongol Bank report, inspection in the report, is expected.
And finally, we know that the MPP has gone back and forth of whether or not they should allow this to go forward or pretty much maintain the status quo of this company, Mongolian Copper, having 49% interest. Do you think there's a division inside the party, the Mongolian People's Party?
Well, first of all, they should make clear this report fully. If it is the really true picture is there, they should understand first all this, what exactly happened, and then they will discuss. But however, I think it's a big issue for Mongolian democracy maturity, how all this publicly related big deal is done without public consent.
Got it. Our next story goes forward looking into next June or July. The Mongolian People's Party has rejected proposed changes to the presidential election for 2017 that many speculate would have given a de facto win for the party's sponsored candidate, Miogam Engvald. He is now the parliament speaker. Members of the ruling party and government at an 18 January caucus meeting voted against a proposed amendment to the election law that was submitted by parliament members that would have taken the choice of the president away from voters and in the hands of elected lawmakers. That would mean an overwhelming that would mean an overwhelming edge for the two-thirds ruling Mongolian People's Party in the legislature. So far, this legislation has been sponsored by members of the Standing Committee for State Structure and has gotten input from the General Election Committee. So Jargal, just looking back, can you give us some more details about what this law is actually doing and who's behind the law?
Actually, now finally they have agreed not to consider this law anymore.
Yeah.
But the process of bringing that draft to the parliament shows exactly what you just said about unclearness of this presidential power. And what I am afraid of is now Mongolian lawmakers have a bad trend to discuss a law before it actually is needed to be implemented. Like the last election law was changed just 6 or a little bit more over a month before the actual elections. So the questioning is coming, what are they doing, for whom they are fitting that law? So that's the big concern, that bad habit of Mongolian parliament to change the rule of game before the game starts. Very close. So, there should be actually, Mongolian parliament has a research center at the parliament. It looks like Mongolian lawmakers are not making clear the implication of any draft, if it is approved, to other laws. Because in this case, for example, 189 or so law provisions to be changed altogether. But to me, the presidential election law has to do first of all with our constitutions. And there are so many other issues to be discussed together in changing our constitutions. So we need to change these constitutions because so many other problems are got together, like the clear division of labor among the powers. 3 legislative, executive, and judicial power. They have a big confusion today. And they feel the understanding is almost the legislative power has every power. They have a power over the executive power. They have over also judicial power. So, and which is you can see when the big scandals about corruption comes to be known for public and disappear slowly and disappearing completely in say a few weeks. So it's a lot concerned, and we are concerned about the justice in this country. And the other thing is our constitutional court, which is a very strange body now, because they made 2 different decisions on one issue. Like last time they changed the election law, before when they have drafted the law about this proportional and majoritarian election law, they said, oh, it's correct, they agreed, they approved. But last year they said, no, it was wrong, it was right now to have just only a majoritarian. So what in this constitutional court is this about if they make 2 different decisions on the same issue? And the Mongolians are not happy also with this constitutional court because they have a headquarters in Zaisang, which is also illegal because Zaisang area, like all these houses, de facto they are illegal.
Because it's unprotected land.
Yes, so and the Constitutional Court is itself there.
Just for our viewers, the Bagahan Mountain is one of the first protected lands observed in the world.
And the final thought on that presidential law. It is a matter, as I said, of changing constitutions, but however, we should have such a kind of power over the parliamentarians. In Austria, Canada, and France, the representative House of Representatives, can be dissolved by the president over with the consent of the prime minister. I think Mongolia should have some mechanism to control their behavior of the parliamentarians. So all these complex issues together to be considered inside of this change.
So we've already they've rejected this law. Do you see in the future a new submission for changes to the election rule in 2017?
First of all, we need to go by all the law for the next election in June this year, in 5 months. Secondly, presidential election law and many other issues we have just now touched upon some. They are to be discussed in the complex of changing constitution. Somehow we need to change that Mongolian constitutions, amend it.
I think what's most concerning about this is for the last election, observers repeatedly brought up the fact that it had gone against the past trend of not touching the election law within 6 months of the actual election. This is actually a global standard that groups actually put forward and sponsor. Now, for Mongolia to hear those comments and again try these same tactics in what looks like to be a move that would erode the actual democratic powers of the voters, that's really concerning, and it's hard not to be cynical about such a move.
It is. That's why people were very skeptic about this amendments of this law of president election. And now I think people are more relaxed now with their considering not to go ahead with that draft.
And looking forward to the election at hand, we know we have the parliament speaker going forward. Who else do you think could enter the race? Are there any names being thrown around?
Not yet. It is also because the second largest party, the Democratic Party, is still running for the chair, who is to be clear next week almost, the end of this January.
So the Democrats are in the midst of actually coming up with who the head of their party even is.
When they will have a chair, now the People's Party has a chair, so there will be the second kind of interactions about this presidential election, which is a big deal for these political parties for this year.
Do you think there's any chance of a minority party being able to prop up
a
candidate?
There is, with this refusal of consideration of new constitutional, the president's election law, now two persons there inside of the political party, inside of the parliament. One is Mr. Basang-hu, who is from People's Revolutionary Party. This party can have, they have a right to nominate a person. There is an only independent member in the parliament, Mr. a very famous singer, Jaf Khalan.
Yes.
He may become a member of a political party, and they will have now a right to nominate a candidate.
Jaf Khalan famously rode into the first day of the legislature on a horse. I think there was a lot of hubbub about it.
You see, these populistic ideas in this country.
Going to work on a horse?
become very popular too. So I don't exclude that he may bring somebody, or maybe himself, to be a candidate. But let's see, because it will depend a lot from this two parties' chair. And hopefully, and there are some voices inside of this political two large parties among that maybe we will have a primary among their candidates. That would be, I think, a very good case. At least Mongolians will have some predictability of our new president, because then we will see in the process of primary competition who is who. So there is a stall. I think it will be a good step ahead forward in democratic process in Mongolia.
I think what's really important to take away from this instance and look forward is the fact that there's a lot more on the line for this race than just who is the president. What is also there is what is the strength of Mongolia's democratic governing institutions.
Exactly.
Moving on to our final story. Mongolia's biggest mine, Talvin Toga, is still trying to lift the price of its coal, and most recently negotiated for its highest ever coal price, an all-time high of $71.50, that's US dollars, from its West Zanki deposit. Coal prices have rallied some after China decided to make a closure of some of its mine. However, Mongolia has fallen behind because its largest mine, the Talvin Toga, is locked into contract prices that are below market value. The state-owned mining unit for the mine, Talventolga mine, Ernest Talventolga, sold coal from its West Sanki mine deposit at auction for a total sum of 22.5 million US dollars. That is what the head told the Prime Minister Jargeltolga Erdenbat last week. He said in quote, 71.50 is the highest price we've traded our coal since the establishment of Ernest Talventolga. That was in 2011 when commercial operations first launched. The mining unit is also in the midst of exploration to increase the size of its deposit. So, real quick for our audience, you know, these numbers getting thrown around, people probably don't think about every day what the price of coal is. So what is the significance of this price to everyday Mongolian lives?
Well, people have a big expectation from this Erdeniz Talventolga mines. Unfortunately, due to populistic promises, they have stayed 4 years ago, borrowed the money, $250 million US from Chalco, Chinese company, which is now they pay for until now. And hopefully in 3 months from now it will be finished. Then the price will be changed, they say. Now it's about $50, and they are very happy with the 70 American dollar per ton today. Not at the deposit, but at the border.
Yes.
Which is a better price. But remember that the world price is still 4 times or 3.5 times more. So it's relative.
It's still not even hitting the benchmark.
Exactly. And but yet it is more than the money 2011, where we had the most highest growth rate in our history. But Talventolga further discussions has a big debate now in the society today, because now who is going to run? There was a rumor that the Chinese company Xinhua, in cooperation with Mongolian company MCS, run a Mongolian company and a Japanese company together, 3 of them are going to buy for only $400 million US dollar, half of this deposit, etc. And there was strongly it was Prime Minister said no, it is not that deal. So we don't know exactly what's going on, but negotiations is there. So to me now, it's a time for considering a new way all this deal. One thing is clear. There is a almost 7 billion tons coal, okay? Out of them, different estimations, but at least 1/3 or 2.2 billion tons of coking coal, okay? With this price of 70 US dollar today, which is very modest price compared to the world price today, we talk about 150 billion US dollars value under the ground, okay? It was also said by one of the parliament member from People's Party, Ayur Saikhan, who was opposing this deal giving to a private hand this whole business. So he was opposing that, and now with this new development, I suggest that if there is $150 billion value under the ground, we need 270 kilometers railways, we need, say, 500 megawatts power, so all 270 kilometers length of railway, say $10 million per kilometer, it is 2.7 billion US dollar, okay? 500 megawatt thermal power station is around, say, $1 billion, the most. So altogether, $3.7 billion investment we need for infrastructure, for development of this mine, okay? So what I suggest is to consider production sharing contract, which was not considered for coal in Mongolia for years. But production sharing contract is a practice, say, for example, Bangladesh today is doing that practices. Now, the idea is mostly used, it's for oil, but in several countries it's used for coal. And I think in Mongolia this is the case. We will say to potential partner that you invest, but unlike oil, the reserve is there, it is not risk. The reserves are already estimated. So you invest the money, okay, you cover your investment from the productions, then we will receive from day one our royalty, say 10%.
Okay.
whatever. The rest, you use it until you cover your cost. So as soon as you cover cost, we will share the product profit 80 to 20%, for example. So this sort of very clear, understandable formula for further development and production of this deposit to be made first, so that people don't think about companies, first of all, about somebody who will take more or less, etc. Frankly, Tawon Talga is, from the beginning, was showing how unclear, not transparent is Mongolian government. So we have solved, politicians mostly own this deposit somehow. They have sold certain shares, they remained with certain companies, etc. So today, whatever case is, Tawon Talga is the indicator of Mongolian strength of Mongolian democracy.
It also has a big impact on other miners in the area. Some have been critical of Talvin Toga because it has kind of dragged down prices. The company's been locked into contract prices with Aluminum Corporation of China, which gave about $350 million loan to the company when it first started out. Mm-hmm. That has been repaid in coal, actual coal deliveries, and those have been marked at pretty low prices. And it's also been kind of a virus that's infected the rest of the industry because other companies, to be competitive, have to match it or try to beat that price. How bad is that problem?
Still, Chalco issue is, as I said, as a more political loan. They have borrowed money for this mining company, but the money proceeds was used by political parties to fulfill their political promises to give cash to people, which they did. Now the company is paying for last 4 years, and now another 3 years, 3 months now, they are to pay Chalco with goods, okay? So obviously in East Tsanghi, that's a big issue. And now current Tawon Talga, Ertnes Tawon Talga cannot use any proceeds from there. That's why they talk about the West Tsanghi. The whole things we have talked is about. Tsanghi is the name west and east of the major.
These are two separate blocks where coal is extracted.
Almost 80% of the total deposit. You know, a very strange thing is the one private company, MCS, for example, owns only 4% of the total licensed territory.
Through Mongolia Mining Corporation.
Yeah, but they say this 4% actually is 20% of the reserve. So that's interesting, also scenario cases. On one side, we need to develop this one. Who has the most experience from Mongolian companies? Again, MMC, this company owned by, mostly owned by MCS. So now Mongolia is in dilemma how to go ahead with this Tawon Talga mine. With this big deposit of value, $150 billion US, you better to have such a decisions, because even today, this year, Mongolia is going to export 11 million tons of, first time, 11 million tons of coking coal to China, which is very probably first time, very possible. Say, if a year we export 20 million tons of coal to China a year annually, then this 2.2 billion tons of coking coal will be enough for 110 years from now. And that's some serious time period that you better to make right decisions now.
I'm gonna let you have the final word right there. I hope our briefings this evening will give you a heads up when you're walking into work Monday morning. Any final thoughts?
Well, next week we expect, as we have talked, the major report from the parliament about 49% of the net. Let's see, let's watch this together. And we will see you in a week from now. You could see us on also VTelevision Facebook on live stream. And it will be tomorrow on website jargaldefacto.com. So you can watch both back in Mongolian and English, this independent review that we find is important for the country with the current development of democracy in the country. So we thank you very much for watching us, and see you next week. Thank you.
Good night, Alan Batar.